I never expected to fall in love at a house party. The music pulsed through the floorboards, and someone's expensive bourbon burned down my throat as I watched him from across the room. Ryan. Even his name felt different on my tongue when I first said it, like tasting something exotic and dangerous. "You're the only person here who looks as uncomfortable as I feel," he said, sliding onto the bar stool next to me. His smile had this way of making the chaos around us fade into white noise. "I'm Layla, and this is the story of how I destroyed the people who tried to destroy me." That night, the party swirled around us like we were caught in the eye of a hurricane. Ryan talked about his work in graphic design, his dreams of starting his own agency, how corporate life was slowly killing his creativity. I found myself leaning closer, drawn in by the passion in his voice, the way his hands moved when he spoke about art. "What about you?" he asked, refilling my glass without asking. "What drives you crazy enough to hide at the bar during the party of the year?" "Numbers," I said. "I'm an accountant. We're naturally antisocial." He laughed, and something inside me shifted. "I doubt that. You're just waiting for the right company." 3 hours later, we were sitting on the front steps, sharing a cigarette neither of us usually smoked. The summer air wrapped around us like a blanket, and I felt drunk on possibility more than alcohol. "My father would hate you," he said suddenly, studying my profile. "Is that a good thing?" "The best thing." He turned to face me fully. "Want to really piss him off?" I should have seen it then. The flash of something desperate in his eyes, the way he said father, like it was a curse word. But I was too busy falling. "How?" "Have dinner with me tomorrow. And the next day. And maybe every day after that until we figure out if this is as real as it feels." I said yes. Of course I said yes. That's how these stories always start, with a yes that should have been a no. The next few months were a blur of late-night conversations, shared dreams, and the kind of love that makes you forget who you were before it. Ryan proposed on a random Tuesday. No fancy restaurant, no rehearsed speech, just the two of us in his apartment eating takeout Chinese food. "Marry me," he said, between bites of Kung Pao chicken. "My parents will lose their minds, and I'll get to wake up to your face every morning. Win-win." I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. "I'm serious, Layla. Marry me. Be my escape plan." There it was again, that desperate edge I chose to ignore. I was too caught up in the romance of it all, the rebellious thrill of a spontaneous engagement. "Yes," I whispered, and his kiss tasted like sweet and sour sauce and promises. The first time I met his parents, Victor and Linda, they were perfectly pleasant. Too perfect. Linda hugged me like I was already family, while Victor's handshake lasted a fraction too long, his eyes assessing me like I was a business proposition. "An accountant," he said, rolling the word around his mouth like expensive wine. "How practical." "We're very proud of Ryan finding someone so responsible," Linda added, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. That dinner was the beginning of the end, though I didn't know it then. Every smile held a hidden agenda. Every compliment carried a price tag I would later have to pay. My father tried to warn me when I told him about the engagement. "Sometimes when things move too fast," he said, "it's because someone's running from something, or towards something they shouldn't." I dismissed his concerns. Thomas was always too cautious, too analytical. What did he know about passion, about the kind of love that makes you want to rebuild your whole world around another person? Now, standing in the cemetery 6 months later, watching them lower my father's casket into the ground, I finally understand what he meant. And I know exactly what I have to do about it. Moving in with Ryan happened faster than I could process the change. One minute I was boxing up my apartment, the next I was arranging my coffee mugs in our kitchen while his mother rearranged them behind my back. "The handles should all face right," Linda said, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against ceramic. "It's more efficient that way." Ryan's always been particular about organization. I bit back a laugh, thinking of Ryan's chaos of a desk at work, his scattered approach to everything except his art. But I said nothing, just watched her methodically turn each mug exactly 45 degrees. "We're so pleased you're joining the family," she continued, her voice honey-sweet. "Victor and I were worried Ryan would never settle down with someone suitable." The pause before suitable stretched just long enough to make my skin prickle. That evening, Victor and Linda insisted on hosting a housewarming dinner. I found myself seated at their formal dining table, surrounded by heavy silverware and weighted expectations. "Ryan tells me you're quite successful at your firm," Victor said, cutting into his steak with surgical precision. "Senior accountant at 28? Impressive." "Thank you. Though I always thought Ryan would end up with someone more creative, like himself." Linda's smile didn't waver as she twisted the knife. "But I suppose opposites attract." Ryan's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. But he said nothing to defend me, just reached for his wine glass with his free hand. "Actually," Victor leaned forward, "we might have an opportunity for your expertise, Layla. Our family's investment portfolio could use a fresh perspective." "Dad," Ryan started, but Victor waved him off. "Nothing major, son. Just some advice. Family helping family." He fixed me with a stare that reminded me of sharks I'd seen at the aquarium. That's what we're all about. Later that night, I found Ryan in his home office, staring at his computer screen without really seeing it. "Your parents seem invested in our relationship," I said carefully. "They mean well." His voice was tight. "They just want what's best for us." "And what do you want?" He finally looked at me, and for a moment I saw something like fear flash across his face. "I want—" He stood abruptly, pulling me into an embrace that felt more like escape than affection. "I want us to be happy, that's all." The next morning, I discovered Linda had let herself in while we were sleeping. She was in our kitchen, replacing our groceries with organic alternatives. "Oh, don't mind me," she chirped, tossing out my favorite coffee. "Just helping you get settled properly. Ryan has such sensitive digestion. Didn't he tell you?" He didn't, because he doesn't. I'd watched him devour street tacos and gas station sushi without consequence. But again, I said nothing. That became our pattern over the next few weeks. Victor and Linda appearing unannounced, making small changes, offering unsolicited advice wrapped in concern. Each time, Ryan would tense up but stay silent, leaving me to navigate their subtle manipulations alone. Then came the first financial favor. "It's just a small loan," Victor explained over Sunday brunch. "The country club's raising their annual fees, and with Linda's medical expenses this year." He trailed off, looking meaningfully at Ryan. "Medical expenses?" I asked, not remembering Linda mentioning any health issues. "Nothing serious," Linda jumped in, touching her throat dramatically. "Just some routine procedures. We'd ask Ryan, but with his creative career being so unstable." I felt Ryan shrink beside me, his shoulders hunching slightly. Before I could stop myself, I heard my voice say, "Of course we'll help. Family helps family, right?" Victor's smile was all teeth. "Exactly. We'll have the paperwork drawn up tomorrow." That night, I lay awake, listening to Ryan's steady breathing beside me. On my nightstand, my phone lit up with a text from my father. "Everything okay? You've seemed distant lately." I started to type, "I'm fine," but deleted it. Instead, I wrote, "Can we meet for coffee this week? Just us?" His response came immediately. "Name the time and place." As I set my phone down, Linda's voice echoed in my head. Family helps family. But whose family was I really helping? And at what cost? I rolled over, studying Ryan's profile in the darkness. He looked younger when he slept, more like the man I met at that party and less like the son who couldn't say no to his parents. I wondered if he knew what he was running from that night, or what he was running me toward. The spreadsheet on my laptop screen blurred as I stared at the numbers for the 10th time. 6 months of small loans to Victor and Linda had quietly ballooned into a sum that made my stomach clench. Each transaction came with a story. Linda's mysterious medical bills, Victor's business venture losses, emergency home repairs that somehow never showed visible results. My coffee had gone cold when my phone buzzed. Another text from Linda. "Darling, we simply must discuss the Christmas fund. The country club's charity gala needs our support." I closed my eyes, remembering last month's emergency when Victor claimed their investment group needed a quick cash injection. Ryan had nodded along, eyes fixed on his plate, while I wrote another check. The front door clicked open. Ryan's footsteps, then Linda's voice. My head snapped up. She was here in our house again. Mother thought she'd help me pick out a new suit for the firm's portfolio presentation, Ryan said, not quite meeting my eyes. We brought dinner. From that lovely French place, Linda added. Much better than that takeout you two always order. I stood up, closing my laptop. Ryan, could we talk privately for a moment? In our bedroom, I pulled up the spreadsheet on my phone. Have you seen these numbers? He glanced at the screen, then away. They're just temporary setbacks. Dad's investments will pay off soon. Like the last 3 were supposed to? My voice cracked. Ryan, we're hemorrhaging money. Your parents don't. His face hardened. Their family, they've supported me through everything. They're supporting themselves through us, I shot back. And you're letting them. A knock at the door made us both jump. Linda's voice drifted through. Everything all right in there? The soup's getting cold. Ryan's shoulders slumped. Coming, Mother. He turned to me, his voice barely a whisper. Please, Layla, just keep the peace. At dinner, Victor called. Linda put him on speakerphone, his voice filling our dining room like smoke. Wonderful news, he announced. The investment group has an incredible opportunity. Time sensitive, of course. We just need... No. The word escaped before I could stop it. Silence fell like a blade. I beg your pardon? Victor's voice went arctic. We can't. I forced myself to look at Linda's shocked face. We've already given so much. Given? Linda's laugh could have frosted glass. My dear, we're family. There's no giving or taking in family. There's only supporting each other. Then where's your support? The words tumbled out. Where's the money from the last 3 investments? The medical bills we never saw? The home repairs that... Layla! Ryan's voice held a warning. I opened my laptop, turned it toward them. Look at the numbers. Really look. Linda's face transformed, her mask slipping for just a moment to reveal something calculating beneath. Ryan, darling, your wife seems... stressed. Perhaps she's working too hard. I'm not... We understand, Linda cut in smoothly. First year of marriage is always an adjustment. Learning to put family first can be challenging for some people. Ryan sat silent, staring at his untouched soup. Your father and I only want what's best for both of you, Linda continued. Speaking of which, Ryan, remember that creative director position Victor mentioned, the one at his friend's agency? I watched my husband's spine straighten, interest flickering in his eyes. The hook, the bait, the trap, all laid out so perfectly. It would be such a shame if anything got in the way of that opportunity, Linda mused, her eyes fixed on me. Later that night, I sat alone in our darkened kitchen, my father's words from our coffee meeting echoing in my head. Sometimes the people closest to us can't see the cage they're in because they helped build it. My phone lit up with a text from my Aunt Karen. You okay, honey? You seemed off at Sunday dinner. Before I could respond, another message appeared, from Victor this time. Documentation for the new investment opportunity attached. Time sensitive. Family comes first. I opened my spreadsheet again, adding a new column. But this time, instead of tracking what they'd taken, I started calculating what it would cost to make them pay it all back. In our bedroom, Ryan slept soundly, unaware that beside him, his wife was finally waking up. The email from the bank arrived at 3:47 a.m. I'd been awake anyway, running numbers through my head like counting sheep, when my phone lit up the darkness. The subject line stopped my breath. Unauthorized account activity alert. Someone had drained our savings account. Every penny we'd set aside, gone in a single transfer. The timestamp showed it happened just hours after I'd refused Victor's latest investment scheme. My hands shook as I dialed Ryan's office number. It was early, but he'd mentioned working late on a project. 3 rings, then his voicemail. I tried his cell. Straight to voicemail. Everything all right, dear? Linda's voice floated through our bedroom door. She wasn't supposed to be here? Why was she here? I closed my laptop, tucking it under the bed before opening the door. Linda stood there in her designer suit, perfect makeup at 4 a.m, holding a steaming mug of coffee. Ryan called, she said, extending the mug. He's staying at our house tonight. The creative director position? They needed him to start immediately on a test project. I didn't take the coffee. The savings account is empty. Oh? Her eyebrows lifted with practiced concern. How dreadful! Though perhaps this is a sign you should let Victor handle the family finances. He has so much more experience. The pieces clicked together like a lock tumbling open. Ryan gave you the account passwords, didn't he? Family takes care of family, she said, her smile never wavering. Sometimes that means protecting people from their own limited perspective. My phone buzzed, a text from Ryan. It's for the best. Trust them. Trust me. I deleted the message without responding. Get out of my house. Our house, dear. The deed's in Ryan's name, remember? Linda set the coffee down, her movements precise and deliberate. Victor thought it best, given your emotional approach to money. I grabbed my keys and laptop, pushing past her. She caught my arm, her manicured nails digging in. Think carefully about your next move, she said softly. Ryan's new position? It depends entirely on family harmony. I yanked free, nearly running to my car. As I pulled away, I saw Linda in my rearview mirror, phone to her ear, that perfect smile still in place. My Aunt Karen's house was only 20 minutes away, but my hands trembled so badly I had to pull over twice. When I finally reached her driveway, she was already on the porch in her robe, arms crossed against the pre-dawn chill. Your father called, she said as I stumbled out of the car. He's been trying to reach you. My phone's been... I started, but she cut me off. There's something you need to know about Victor and Linda. She led me inside to her home office. Thomas has been investigating them for months. She pulled out a thick file. Your father may seem distant, but he notices things. After your wedding, he started digging. Victor's investment group? It doesn't exist. Neither do Linda's medical bills. They've done this before. To Ryan's previous fiancée. My stomach lurched. Previous? She disappeared 3 years ago. Left Ryan at the altar, supposedly, but your father found something. Karen hesitated. The timing of her departure coincided with a massive transfer from her accounts to an offshore holding company. Victor's company. I sank into a chair, remembering Linda's words. Family takes care of family. There's more, Karen said quietly. Thomas was planning to confront them tomorrow. He has evidence of at least 4 other cases, all young professionals, all married to people connected to Victor's social circle, all financially drained and discredited within a year of marriage. My phone buzzed again. Victor this time. Family meeting, 7 p.m., attendance mandatory. Karen read the message over my shoulder. You can't go back there. No, I said, something cold and clear crystallizing in my chest. I have to, but first I need everything in that file. Layla. They took everything from me, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Now I'm going to return the favor. As the sun rose, I started reading, making notes, building a plan. They thought they were destroying me. Instead, they were creating something far more dangerous. Someone with nothing left to lose. Karen's call came at midnight. Her voice cracked as she spoke. Layla, it's your father. There's been an accident. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly before me, fluorescent lights burning my eyes. I found Karen outside the ICU, clutching her phone like a lifeline. They're saying it was a brake failure, she whispered. He was driving home from a meeting with his lawyer. My blood turned to ice. What meeting? About Victor's case. He was going to file tomorrow. She pressed a USB drive into my palm. He wanted you to have this. Said if anything happened, don't. I closed my fingers around the drive. He'll tell me himself when he wakes up. The doctor's face told a different story. Words like extensive internal bleeding and critical condition floated past me. I stood at my father's bedside, watching machines breathe for the man who'd always been my foundation. My phone buzzed. Linda. Terrible news about Thomas. We're all praying for him. Family dinner still on for tomorrow? I switched off my phone and plugged in the USB drive at the nurse's station computer. Files upon files appeared. Financial records, photographs, sworn statements from Victor's previous victims. At the bottom, a video file. For Layla. My father's face filled the screen, recorded just hours before the accident. If you're watching this, something's happened to me. Victor's operation goes deeper than we thought. The others weren't just scammed, they were systematically destroyed. Careers ruined, reputations shattered. The money was never the point. It's about power, about breaking people who might threaten his control. A nurse touched my shoulder, making me jump. "He's asking for you." I rushed back to find my father conscious, struggling to speak through his oxygen mask. His fingers trembled as they found mine. "The safe," he whispered. "Home office, code, your birthday." "Dad, save your strength." "Promise." His grip tightened. "Promise you'll be smarter than me. Don't let them see you coming." The monitors screamed before I could answer. Medical staff flooded the room, pushing me out. Through the chaos, I heard Karen crying. I drove to my father's house in a daze, the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket. The home office still smelled like his cologne. The safe opened with a soft click. Inside, more files, a gun I never knew he owned, and a letter addressed to me. My phone came back to life with missed calls from Ryan. I answered on the final ring. "Where are you?" His voice held an edge I'd never heard before. "Mom and Dad are worried. My father is dying." "I know. I'm sorry. But..." He paused. "Dad needs to talk to you. About the accounts." "Which ones?" I kept my voice steady. "The real ones, or the offshore ones, where he hides the money he steals?" Silence stretched between us. Finally, "Come home, Layla. We can fix this." "Like you fixed your last fiancé's life?" Another pause. "Who told you about Sarah?" "My father did. Right before your parents had his brakes cut." "That's crazy. You're not thinking clearly." Ryan's voice softened to the tone he used when we first met. "Come home. Let us help you through this." I looked at the gun in the safe, then at my father's letter. "Okay," I said. "You're right. I'll be there soon." I hung up and opened the letter. Inside, a single sentence. "Remember what I taught you about chess? The queen protects herself by making others think she's vulnerable." My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Linda. "Hurry home, dear. The family needs to stick together in times like these." I tucked the gun into my bag, along with my father's files. They wanted a vulnerable queen? I'd give them one. But first, I had some pawns to sacrifice. The hospital called as I was leaving. I didn't need to answer. Karen's next text told me everything. "He's gone." I started my car, plotting my moves. Victor and Linda thought they were playing chess. They didn't realize we'd been playing different games all along. They wanted to break another piece on their board. Instead, they'd created their destroyer. Victor's study felt smaller than I remembered, the wood paneling closing in like a coffin. I sat across from him, my father's files spread between us on his mahogany desk, watching his face as he processed what I'd brought. "Quite the story you've constructed," he said finally, tapping the papers with one manicured finger. "Though I'm surprised you'd bring such accusations to me directly. Not very strategic." "I learned strategy from my father." I kept my voice steady. "Before you had him killed." He didn't flinch. "Grief can make us imagine terrible things, Layla. Though I must say Thomas's accident was unfortunate timing." Linda appeared in this doorway, Ryan hovering behind her like a shadow. "Darling, what's going on?" "Show them," I said to Victor. "Show them what you did to Sarah and the others." Ryan stepped forward. "Layla, you're not thinking clearly." 8 women. I cut him off. 8 lives destroyed. Did you know, Ryan? Or did you just look the other way like you always do? That's enough. Victor's voice carried the crack of a gavel. "Linda, call Dr. Matthews. Clearly, Layla's father's death has triggered some sort of breakdown." I pulled out my phone, playing the video my father had recorded. His voice filled the room. "The evidence is conclusive. Victor's pattern of targeting young professionals, particularly through arranged marriages within his social circle." Linda's perfectly composed face cracked slightly. "Victor? It's obviously doctored." He snapped, but his hands were shaking as he reached for his desk drawer. "Like Sarah's suicide note?" I asked. "The one you forced her to write before she disappeared?" The gun appeared in Victor's hand so smoothly it seemed like a magic trick. "I won't let you destroy what I've built." Ryan finally moved, stepping between us. "Dad, put it down. We can fix this." "Fix it?" Victor laughed, an ugly sound. Like we fixed your other problems? Tell her, Ryan. Tell her why Sarah really left. I saw it in Ryan's face before he spoke. She was pregnant, he whispered. Dad said he'd handle it. The world tilted sideways. I grabbed the desk to steady myself, bile rising in my throat. Family protects family, Linda said mechanically, but her eyes were wild. We did what we had to do. And now? I forced the words out. Will you handle me too? You brought this on yourself, Victor said, the gun unwavering. We gave you every chance to be part of the family, to play your role. My role? I laughed, and it sounded like breaking glass. Like Ryan's role? Your puppet son who helps you trap women, drain them dry, and dispose of them? I loved them, Ryan protested weakly. All of them. I just couldn't stop it. Enough. Victor stood, the gun following my movement as I backed toward the door. Linda, call Matthews. Tell him we need to discuss having Layla committed. Grief-induced paranoia, threatening behavior, the usual story. My back hit the wall. All my careful plans, my father's evidence, useless against their practiced performance. They'd done this before. They'd do it again. You won't get away with this, I said, but the words sounded hollow even to me. We already have. Linda's smile was back, professional and practiced. Who would believe you? The unstable widow, driven mad by her father's tragic accident, making wild accusations against her loving family? Ryan wouldn't meet my eyes. His mother's hand rested on his shoulder, controlling him like a marionette. I trusted you, I said to him. I loved you. Love is weakness, Victor said. Control is power. That's what I taught my son, what I tried to teach you. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Karen's preset signal. Everything was in place, just as we'd planned. But looking at Victor's steady hand on the gun, at Linda's perfect mask, at Ryan's broken submission, I realized something my father had tried to warn me about. Revenge against people who feel no guilt is like throwing stones into an ocean. They don't sink, they drown you instead. The study door opened behind me. 2 men in white coats entered, followed by a distinguished-looking doctor. Matthews, I assumed. Right on cue. Mrs. Anderson? Matthews said gently. Your family is very worried about you. Why don't we go somewhere quiet and talk? I looked at my husband, my in-laws, these strangers who'd orchestrated my destruction with the precision of a symphony. And I smiled. They had no idea what was coming. The news broke during Victor's charity gala. As he stood at the podium, accepting applause for his generous donation, every phone in the ballroom lit up with the same notification. Breaking, local business mogul linked to multiple disappearances. I watched from my seat beside Ryan as Victor's face went ash gray. Linda's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. What have you done? Ryan whispered, gripping my arm. I smiled, remembering my father's words about chess. I learned from the best. Your family. The evidence my father had gathered wasn't just about Sarah or the money. It was about all of them. Every woman Victor had destroyed, every life Linda had helped dismantle. And now, thanks to Karen's connections at the newspaper, it was public. Victor abandoned his speech, moving through the crowd like a shark cutting through water. Linda followed, her perfect mask cracking with each step. They found us at our table, Victor's hands trembling with barely controlled rage. Outside. Now. His voice could have frozen hell. In the garden, away from prying eyes, Victor finally exploded. Do you have any idea what you've done? Exactly what you taught me, I said. Family protects family, right? I'm protecting the family you tried to destroy. Mine. We can fix this, Linda started, but I cut her off. Like you fixed Sarah? Or did you mean like you fixed my father's brakes? Ryan stepped between us. Layla, please. We can still... Still what? I turned to him. Still pretend you're not complicit? Still act like you didn't know what happened to your own child? The color drained from Linda's face. What did you say? Oh. I feigned surprise. Ryan didn't tell you? Sarah was pregnant when she disappeared. But you knew that already, didn't you, Victor? Linda turned to her husband, then her son. Victor? Ryan? It was necessary, Victor said, but his voice had lost its edge. The pregnancy would have complicated things. Complicated? Linda's perfect facade cracked completely. Our grandchild? The baby would have ruined everything, Ryan whispered. Dad said we had to protect the family name. Linda staggered back as if struck. For the first time, I saw her truly look at her husband, not as her partner in crime, but as the monster he was. The police have everything, I said quietly. Every document, every transaction, every disappeared woman. And Sarah? She's alive. My father found her before you killed him. She's testifying right now. Victor lunged for me, but Ryan caught him. Don't touch her. You ungrateful. Victor swung, his fist connecting with Ryan's jaw. As they struggled, Linda stood frozen, watching her perfect world implode. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. It's over, I said. The queen takes the king. Victor broke free from Ryan, reaching for something in his jacket. The gun appeared again, but this time Linda moved faster than anyone expected. She grabbed Victor's arm, forcing it up as the shot rang out into the night sky. No more, she said, her voice steel. No more deaths, no more lies. Police flooded the garden. As they led Victor away in handcuffs, he kept screaming about family loyalty, about weakness and power. Linda went quietly, her mask finally completely shattered. Ryan stood before me, blood trickling from his split lip. I loved you, he said. That part was real. Love without courage is just another form of fear, I replied. You taught me that too. As they led him away, I felt nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction, not even relief. Just a hollow space where revenge had lived, waiting to be filled with something new. Karen found me later, sitting alone in the garden. Your father would be proud, she said softly. Would he? I looked at the stars. I'm not sure revenge is what he wanted for me. No, she agreed. He wanted you to be strong, and you are. Stronger than any of them. I touched the locket around my neck, the one containing the last photo of my father and me. The game isn't over yet, I said. There are other families out there like Victor's, other women who need protection. Karen smiled. Then let's get to work. The night air carried the scent of jasmine and justice. Somewhere in the distance, a clock struck midnight, marking the end of one game and the beginning of another. The courtroom emptied slowly, leaving me alone with the echo of the judge's verdict. Victor would serve 20 years. Ryan took a plea deal for 5. Linda turned state's evidence, trading her perfect life for immunity and redemption. I lingered, touching the polished wood of the witness stand where I'd told our story. Where Sarah had told hers, her hand protectively curved around her growing belly. Another chance at the family Victor had tried to destroy. You did well. Linda's voice startled me. She stood in the doorway, looking smaller without her designer suits and carefully crafted persona. Better than I ever could. Was any of it real? I asked. The warmth, the concern, the family dinners? Parts. She moved closer, her heels clicking against marble. I envied you, actually. Your strength. I spent 30 years building walls to protect myself. You built weapons instead. Is that why you helped the prosecution? I helped because... She touched the empty witness stand. Because Sarah wasn't the first. There was another baby before Ryan. Victor said we had to protect the family name. I've been paying for that choice ever since. The revelation hung between us like smoke. Finally, Linda reached into her bag, pulling out a familiar object. My father's watch. They found this in Victor's study, she said. He kept trophies. I thought you should have it back. My hands shook as I took it. The face was cracked from the impact of the crash, frozen at the moment my father's car went off the road. I never wanted, Linda started, but I cut her off. Don't. We both know exactly what you wanted. She nodded, accepting the weight of truth. What will you do now? Through the courthouse windows, I could see Karen waiting by her car. On the passenger seat lay files about other families like Victor's, other women who needed help. My father's last case wouldn't be his lead after all. I'm going to keep playing chess, I said. But this time, I'm changing the rules. Linda's lips curved in what might have been respect. Victor always said the queen was the most dangerous piece on the board. He was wrong. The most dangerous piece is the one that looks harmless until it's too late. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry. About everything. I know, that's what makes it worse. After she left, I stood at the window, watching the city pulse with life. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. I never deserved you. I deleted it without responding. Some games aren't worth finishing. Karen honked the horn, impatient. The files in her car contained 3 new cases, 3 more families with secrets dark enough to kill for, 3 more chances to turn victims into victories. I touched my father's watch one last time before slipping it into my pocket. The face was broken, but the mechanism still worked, ticking away the moments between what was and what could be. Outside, the autumn air carried the scent of endings and beginnings. I thought of that house party where I'd first met Ryan, how easily I'd fallen for the promise of family, how expertly they'd played me. But they'd taught me more than they intended. About power, about patience, about the quiet satisfaction of watching carefully laid plans unfold. I slid into Karen's car, opening the first file. Another wealthy family. Another web of lies. Another chance to balance the scales. Ready? Karen asked. I smiled, thinking of Linda's words about queens and chess pieces, about the power of looking harmless until the perfect moment strikes. Ready, I said, and meant it. The city stretched before us, full of beautiful houses hiding ugly secrets, full of families like Victor's, who thought their money and influence made them untouchable, full of women who needed someone to show them how to fight back. They'd created their own worst enemy, teaching me their games, their rules, their weaknesses. Now I would use every lesson against them. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time I knew exactly how to play.